Dobrý den, vítejte na mém kanále Czech by Zuzka, kde vám pomocí angličtiny vysvětluju českou gramatiku. In this video we are going to have a look at indirect speech in Czech. You will see that this is a topic that is actually quite easy. In many languages, when you have a direct speech, the tense and many other aspects vary when you transform it into the indirect speech. Let's see what happens in Czech. Jdeme na to. We will first have a look at declarative sentences. That means no questions or orders. There are two columns here. This is the direct speech where you have the quotation marks, uvozovky in Czech, and then the indirect speech where you don't have the quotation marks anymore. You paraphrase what the person said. So this is the direct speech, přímá řeč, and indirect speech, nepřímá řeč. Let's see the first example. Petr říká, Peter says, Peter's saying, už to nikdy neudělám. I will never do that again. And when we say that Peter said this, we can say Petr řekl or Petr říkal, Peter said, and then we have to connect it with the conjunction že, which means that. It's a very common conjunction that we often use after certain verbs. For example, řekl že, he said that. Myslím že, I think that. Or vidím že, I see that. And we also use it in indirect speech for declarative sentences. Petr řekl, že už to nikdy neudělá. Peter said that he would never do it again. Let's see the difference. So obviously here we added že, and we have past tense here at the beginning. But let's focus on the actual sentence, what he said. Už to nikdy neudělá. The only thing that changed is the pronoun of the verb. So obviously he's saying, I will never do that again, neudělám. And here we are talking about him in third person. He would never do that again. And the tense doesn't change. When you look at this verb, neudělám means future. I will not do it, neudělám. So this is future tense. And in Czech, in the indirect speech, that doesn't matter. You just keep it as it is. We can simply say, Peter said that he will. Whereas in English, you say, Peter said he would. A short note. Do you know what is the difference between Petr řekl and Petr říkal? Well, they're both in past. And one is perfective, one is imperfective. Petr řekl, it's perfective. Petr řekl. Peter said. We are just mentioning he said. That's the result. Petr říkal, it's imperfective. He was saying, but it can also be translated as he said. And we use it when there is a circumstance, when you want to explain something. You know, Peter swore that he would never do it again and he did it anyways. So then you can say, ale Petr říkal, že už to nikdy neudělá. But he was saying, that's the circumstance. You are talking about the background. Well, he was promising. Let's see the second pair. Petr říká, těším se na tebe. Peter saying, I'm looking forward to seeing you. I'm looking forward to you. Těším se na tebe. Petr řekl, že se na mě těší. Okay, so here it's a little bit different. You can immediately notice the word order because we are starting this clause by že, which is another word that goes before this verb. So se cannot be after the verb. But also, we often don't like the pronouns to be left at the end. Že, se, and then you put the pronoun na mě, which would be the accusative, and then the verb, že se na mě těší. Of course, těším is in the já person, and těší is referring to he, so the pronoun changed. But what about the tense? Těším se is present. So this is present. Těším se teď. And těší se, it's also in present. We just changed the pronoun of the verb. And the third pair. Petr říká, neměl jsem čas. Peter's saying, I didn't have time. You can immediately see that this is past tense. Neměl jsem čas. Petr říkal, že neměl čas. The only change is the pronoun again because we refer to Peter, to him, že neměl čas, že on neměl čas. Neměl jsem, neměl čas. And the word order is not necessary to change. Past tense, no problem. Even if we had conditional, it would stay in the original tense, and the only thing that we would change would be the pronoun, the form of the verb. Or if we have adverbs such as yesterday, včera. If you say this sentence another day, then you cannot say včera, but you would say ten den, that day. The same like in English. And the pronoun as well. Na tebe, na mě. Depends who says the indirect speech. It could also be Peter, right? It could be, já jsem říkal, že se na tebe těším. One more interesting thing to mention is that the quotation marks in Czech are written in this way. Bottom and then top, unlike in English. Now let's see what happens with interrogative sentences, with questions. You know that we have two types of questions. Questions that can be answered by yes and no, and open-ended questions that can be answered in multiple ways. Let's see what happens with the yes or no questions. This is the direct speech and this is the indirect speech. Petr se ptá. Peter is asking. Máš po obědě čas? Are you free after lunch? Do you have time after lunch? Máš po obědě čas? So this is a yes and no question. And when we change it to the indirect speech, we say Petr se zeptal, or Petr se ptal, jestli mám po obědě čas. Peter asked, or Peter was asking, whether I was free after lunch. Jestli means if or whether is the most common conjunction in this case. If. You could also use a formal one, which is zda. Zda means whether, yes or no, and it's more formal. You can always be sure by saying jestli. So what happened here? Nothing really happened except we had to add jestli. Here we cannot say že, because že is stating something. And this was a question. Peter asked if I had time after lunch. This was in present tense, and as you can see, it stayed in present tense as well. And we just changed the pronoun. Máš ty čas? Mám já čas. And if Peter was the one mentioning what he said in indirect speech, it would stay the same. Já jsem se tě ptal, jestli máš po obědě čas. I was asking you if you were free after lunch. The second type of questions is the open-ended, and we have an example here. Petr se ptá, proč si na mě nepočkal? Peter's asking, why did you wait for me? Petr se ptal, proč jsem na něho nepočkal? Here we don't say jestli or zda or že, because we already have a conjunction, proč, why. The open-ended questions would often start by question words such as kdy, when, proč, why, v kolik hodin, at what time. And when you change that into the indirect speech, you use those same words that are at the beginning, and they become the connector of the sentence. The tense didn't change, and we only changed the pronouns or the adverbs that appear there that need to be changed. Remember, jestli, if, and zda, which you have to use for yes and no question in indirect speech. So far so good, right? But those that watched my video 2 weeks ago might say, well, I know what's coming. Yes, the third type is the imperative, and when we give order in Czech and it's in indirect speech, there is a little change. So this is direct speech, and Peter is giving commands, or he's using sentences in imperative. Přijď za mnou do kanceláře. Come see me in my office. We say přijď za mnou, which means come behind me. That doesn't make sense, but it means come to see me in my office. And then when we say what Peter said, we have to change something. Petr řekl, or Petr říkal, abych za ním přišel do kanceláře. Peter told me that I should come meet him in his office. He commanded me so that I would come meet him in his office. So what changed? We had to use the aby clause. And aby always needs a past tense. Přišel, abych za ním přišel. If you don't know this construct, I recommend you to watch this video or the videos before that. Another thing that changed was obviously the pronoun za mnou, za ním, and we also prefer to put it right after this conjunction. And přijď is an imperative, and we changed it into conditional because we added abych. We have another word that we can use instead of abych, and all will be easier. I'll show you in a minute, but let's do the hard part first. Second sentence. Petr říká, zeptej se mého šéfa. Peter's saying, ask my boss. Imperative. Petr řekl, říkal, abych se zeptal jeho šéfa. We have to use abych. Abych plus past tense. Abych se zeptal, we have to switch the order because we are starting the clause by another word, not the verb. So se has to jump first. And mého changed to jeho, his boss. But wait, there's another way, which is a little easier. We can also use for these commands the word ať. Ať is what we use when we wish something. I wish that. And we can also use it in indirect speech. So if we replace this by ať, so we replace this. Ať is followed by a present tense or future tense. Depends what kind of verb it is. Přijít is perfective, so then it will become future tense. So you say, ať za ním přijdu. Přijdu. So that I will come to see him in his office. Ať za ním přijdu. This will be the future tense. And for this sentence it would be Petr řekl, ať se. Zeptat se, it's also perfective, so we need to use the future tense. Ať se zeptám jeho šéfa. Or maybe more elegant solution. We use both of them. Ať might sound more urgent or might be more similar to the original commands because of the tenses. The tense is more similar than the conditional. And abych might seem more distant. But remember that ať would be followed by a present tense or future tense. No past tense or conditional. And the other option is aby in the form that we need, and it would be followed by the conditional. In the last part of the video, we will look at something practical. We will do two little exercises. This first exercise will be focused on making the original sentence. So what was the original? The direct speech. These sentences are in indirect speech. And the first one is zeptal se, jestli mi od něho přišel email. He asked me if I got an email from him. Remember the word jestli? Jestli. If. Was it a declarative sentence? Was it a question or was it an imperative? Jestli means it was a question. It was a yes and no question. So in English it would be, did you receive an email from me? But we express it in a different way. We say, did the email from me come to you? So it will be přišel. That doesn't change. Přišel because we talk about the email, that's the subject. Přišel ti. And then from me. Od mě. Something is not right here. Ode mě. Ode mě. We vocalize this preposition. Přišel ti ode mě email? Did you receive an email from me? Řekl mi, že na to zapomněl. He told me he forgot about it. This is a declarative sentence. Říká mi, I forgot about it. Zapomněl jsem na to. Remember I told you that we like the pronouns to be pushed towards the beginning when there is another word in front of it. Like here we have že. Zapomněl jsem na to. Řekli nám, abychom přišli včas. They told us to come in time. We have abychom. Abychom means it was what? It was imperative. So they are giving us a command. They are saying, come on time. Don't know if you remember how to make imperatives. There is also a video for that. Přijďte. včas. And that's all. Přijďte včas. Excellent. Let's see another part. The second exercise is focused on making the indirect speech. Imagine, Pavla říká. Pavla says, měli bychom zaplatit nájem. We should pay the rent. And if we say it in indirect speech, it would be Pavla řekla. And then you have to use something to connect these sentences. You would use že, that we should pay the rent. All those words will be the same. We will just change the word order. Že bychom is first. Že bychom, then měli. Že bychom měli zaplatit nájem. The rest is the same. Pavla říká, zavři dveře. Pavla says, close the door. Dobrý. Imperative, so she told me to close the door. Let's try it with aby, because we already practiced quite a lot before. Pavla mi řekla, so that I would close the door, we need to say abych. Abych, and then the conditional, zavřel, because the verb is zavřít, abych zavřel dveře. Pavla řekla. Remember that you have to put a comma. Pavla řekla, koma, že. Pavla řekla, koma, abych zavřel dveře. And the third sentence, Pavla řekla, napiš mi adresu. Write me your address. Another imperative. So that I would write her address. Again, we would use abych, and then we have to say, so that I would write the address to her. We have to follow the same structure in Czech, so to her, dative would be abych jí napsal adresu. The pronoun jumps before the verb because we have a sentence, a clause that starts with abych. What would happen if we use ať? Because that's also another option. If we use ať, Pavla řekla ať, and then zavřít is perfective. I would just say ať zavřu dveře. And here it would be Pavla řekla ať, and the verb is napsat, also perfective. So you say ať napíšu. But again, you have to say the pronoun first. Ať jí napíšu adresu. Ať jí napíšu adresu. To je ode mě všechno. Many of these topics have been discussed in my videos previously. But if you have any questions, do not hesitate and drop me a comment. And if you think that this might be a little too advanced, that you would like to just relax and learn Czech in context on a lower level, maybe elementary or pre-intermediate, you still have a chance to get my course on discount until the 5th of March. Remember, Explore the Art of Original Czech Conversing is on 30% discount for 3 more days. Ahoj! Vítejte u prvního dialogu. Mějte se hezky a uvidíme se příští týden. Ciao.